I am going to get straight to the point. I've seen so many gurus online claiming they can teach you how to make money quick, but most, if not all of them, have never started their own businesses. I'm an NHS doctor that's built a profitable business whilst working in the hospitals, and in this video I'm going to cut through all of the noise and I'm going to give you a simple system that I would use to build another business today. You'll get the mindset to avoid burnout, you'll get the foundations that really matter, and you'll get the exact tools to get your first paying customers. Now, if you're looking for a get-rich-quick video, this isn't for you, please skip the video. But if you're looking for the fundamentals that'll last forever, let's get started. If you're thinking of starting a business, you're probably already quite an ambitious person. You're probably very driven. Maybe you want to challenge yourself. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. But I think as well as being ambitious and hardworking and determined and all of those kind of characteristics, something that is often overlooked is that you need to be realistic. And what I mean by that is your first business is not going to take off, or it's highly unlikely that your first business is going to take off. I think the stat is something around 60% of businesses fail within their first year. So you have to be realistic and you have to have the expectations set from the start that maybe your first 3-4 businesses are not going to work. It'll be like your 5th, 6th business that really takes off and makes you a millionaire. Seriously though, the more failures you have behind you, the more likely you are to be successful in the future. And that's a well-known fact. Think of business as like, imagine you're in the gym and every time you do a rep in the gym, maybe you're like squatting, every rep you do, you get stronger over time, your technique improves. Every business you start is like a rep, and the more reps you do, your technique will get better, you'll get stronger, and basically, eventually you'll build a business that will be profitable and successful. The next thing about mindset is you really have to be a lateral thinker. And what I mean by this is I think you need to be a creative individual. So if there's a challenge, it's not just about thinking outside of the box, but it's how many different solutions you can come up with to that single challenge that are innovative, unique. Maybe they're cheaper, maybe they're ways that your competitors haven't thought of solving that problem. So it's really about being a creative individual who can bring a different perspective to the challenges you're facing in business. I think lateral thinking is a really, really important skill and mindset to have in business. Another thing is, I think you need to be really self-aware. Self-awareness isn't just about knowing your strengths and weaknesses and all that kind of stuff. It's like your ego. How do you keep a check on your ego? So it's a really important skill to have, and I'm kind of reminded of a story. So I remember reading a while ago that Ben Francis, most of you guys who watch this content, you'll know who Ben Francis is. So Ben is the founder of Gymshark, and I remember watching some podcast that Ben was on, and he was essentially explaining that this business that he built, whilst working in like Pizza Hut or something, and he's grafted and he's been chief exec for, however many years to get to this point where he's been wearing multiple hats, doing all the kind of different things that are involved in running that business and setting it up, from like marketing and printing t-shirts and web design and, customer engagement, all that kind of stuff. And he's built it up to this point where he's now reflecting and thinking, I don't have the skill set to take this business forward in the way that I think it needs to go. And he stepped down as chief exec of Gymshark. I think he stepped into like a chief marketing officer role. Don't quote me on that, you'll have to watch the podcast. But essentially, he checked his ego, he stepped away, he brought somebody in with a lot more experience in the industry, basically somebody who had demonstrated success in business, in his space, in his industry, and let them run the business whilst he was essentially still learning and upskilling. And fast forward many, many years later, he's now chief exec of Gymshark again, because he's gone round different departments, he's learnt about different elements of the business, and he's now feels like he's in a position to be running the company as CEO again. So I think it's that type of self-awareness that is really important, but it's also about accountability. So it's holding yourself accountable, because essentially you are the captain of the ship. So I think as well as being like creative and hardworking and all those kind of things, accountability is important, self-awareness is really important. I think being realistic before you go into business is a really, really important mindset. But all of that being said, you have to be a doer. You have to just be somebody who's going to get on with things no matter what. You might be tired, you might have had a long day, but you have to just get things done and be a doer. So I think a really important foundation for your business is that you have to have a clear purpose. I think if you don't have a purpose, it's really, really easy to give up and just not want it and not want to go through all of the rubbish times essentially that are going to be ahead of you, because being an entrepreneur is actually not fun. Although it seems like that on social media, it is really not fun and it can be quite lonely. So I think if you don't have a clear mission, purpose, and vision of what you're trying to accomplish, it's really, really easy to give up. So basically, if you are doing something just for the purpose of monetary return, you are likely to fail or give up, because your why, your purpose probably isn't strong enough. Let me give you an example of this. So let's say you're an absolute nut job and you love running. You love running so much that you run like 5K every single day, and your complete passion is running. You want to spread this, you want to share running with everybody else, and maybe you want to build like a community of like-minded people, runners. Maybe you want to start a run club. So you spend the next 12 months and your purpose, mission, vision is all focused on getting these people together, building this community. So your purpose is community building. And after 12 months, maybe you've got like 10,000 members of your run club and it's really taking off. And at that point, maybe you decide you're going to think about introducing like training schemes. Maybe you're going to think about doing like training plans or nutrition plans for runners, and you decide to then sell that into your community. That is a business that has been built around a vision and a purpose, where the founder has focused on community building and then thought, okay, how can I now monetize this? And not all businesses work like that. That's just one example. But the take home from this is, don't start a business if you're doing it just for the money. Have a vision, have a clear mission statement and a challenge that you're trying to overcome. So there is this great book by Simon Sinek, and if you're still watching this video, you probably know who that is. But essentially in his book, which is called Start With Why, he tells us that building this kind of like community and having this really purpose-driven and mission-driven business, you are more likely to eventually build this loyal consumer base or this community that can convert into sales. And the reason for this is that there's a bit of science behind this, and that is that purpose and mission really kind of touches the limbic system in the brain, which is responsible for all of our emotions and memory. And that feeling of kind of belonging and community is really, really important in business. And you'll realize this, business is all about people. So essentially focus on the why, which could be the challenge you're trying to solve, and then worry about the what, which is like the product, or the how, which is like the solution later on. Another important kind of foundation in business is you really want to start off with a culture of launch and learn. So I remember when I was starting my business, I was part of this kind of entrepreneurship community, which was really good because it's about finding your tribe as well. And I came across this book called The Lean Startup, and I think it's by somebody called Eric Ries. Don't quote me on that. But this book essentially tells you how you can develop this very lean, go-to-market ready product, which is essentially your MVP or your minimal viable product, which is the most simple, basic function of your product or service that you can generate sales for and test. And the idea is that you launch, you get something out there, you get immediate feedback from it, you learn, you reiterate, you improve, and you go again. So I think this is a really, really important kind of foundation and culture to build your business on, which is the idea of launch and learn. Because we've got to talk about perfectionism here a little bit. Look, I'm guilty of perfectionism. I think there's an element of perfectionism in all of us where we want everything to be so perfect and all the logos sorted out and the website to be set up and all these kind of things to fall in place. But the reality of it is, when you strive for perfection in that way, you lose momentum, you lose traction, and things take you like 50 times as long. If you can start your business on the foundations of a launch and learn culture, you will be so much further along the journey in 12 months' times, because you'll be testing and failing quicker than everybody else. Imagine if you spent 6 months developing a product, then you spent another 6 months developing the kind of reiteration, and then you tested that again. Imagine how long it would take you to get to that endpoint. Whereas you might have another founder who is like building something in 2 weeks, getting it out, testing it, getting user feedback, reiterating, building again, going again. That is the model that you should follow. The next thing, I think, which is a really, really important foundation in your business, is hiring. So there is a really good quote that I found, which is, your ego is your most expensive hire. And basically, when you are ready to hire people, you have to be able to let go. And it is one of the biggest challenges for founders. I've spoken to and mentored dozens of founders, and one of the most common traits that comes up is the inability or the difficulty to let go of control, or let go and give autonomy to somebody external coming into the company. But when you are ready to hire, you have to let go and you have to hire people who are better than you, because if you don't and you let your ego get in the way, I can tell you now, it is a recipe for disaster. You might as well forget about it. You will not be able to grow and scale at the rate you need to, or at the rate that you really deserve for your business. You'll be doing it a massive injustice. So hire right, make sure you get the right people, credible, good background, who are better than you in the area that you are hiring them for. And I think it's really your job as a founder is not, I mean, you look, when you're in a startup phase, you're doing so many different things, whether it's like marketing and social media and trying to just run daily operations. But as you grow, your job as a founder is just to be able to bring other people together to share the same vision, mission, and value as you. That's why that kind of purpose-driven, objective is so important. Now, I think the most important foundation out of all of these, I mean, they're all important foundations, but I think the most important foundation, and it's often overlooked, it is your health and well-being as a founder. So nothing is more important than the foundations that you set up for yourself when you are going into business, because it is way too easy to see on social media, and I was guilty of this almost a decade ago when I was looking at starting businesses. You see this culture of, go to sleep at 1 a.m., wake up at 4 a.m., grind all day, all this kind of stuff. And believe me, it is a load of nonsense. That is not how businesses function. Any chief exec doing that is running their business the complete wrong way. I think you really, really need to go into business with the correct foundations that look after your own health. So that means getting enough sleep, keeping track of your nutrition, making sure you do adequate exercise. Now, work-life balance is a term that's thrown around quite a lot. I'm not 100% sure I agree with it all the time, and I think you can have good foundations in how you're setting up a business and not kind of going for this toxic hustle culture. But at the same time, you have to recognize that work-life balance is not always possible, but that doesn't mean you aspire to set your business up on incorrect foundations of this kind of toxic hustle culture that is very much publicized to us and shoved down our throats on social media. I think as a doctor, I'm quite big on protecting my energy and focus so I can accurately execute, especially in business. Recently, I actually checked my own health markers and I was really lucky. Thriva, a company that provides at-home blood tests, reached out to me and sent me a test kit where I could check things like my cholesterol, my vitamin D, my liver function test, inflammation, my testosterone levels, my thyroid function. Literally, the list goes on and on and on. They are not sponsoring this video, but honestly, it was such a useful tool to have, especially because it was so easy to use. I could literally just put the little blood collector on my arm, collect it to test tube. Honestly, it was so easy and useful. I collected the sample at home, sent it off to their labs. Within a couple of days, I got all of my blood test results back online. A doctor reviewed it. It showed me exactly what I needed to do, what I needed to work on. And I think I'm now making this conscious effort to improve my well-being before I turn 30. And I think if you're the same, if you're at a point in life where you think, do you know what, I really want to make a difference to my physical health because it does reflect and directly impact onto your business, head over to Thriva. You can actually use my discount code. I'll leave it somewhere in the comments or in the description around this video, and it will give you 20% off your first test kit. Now, I'm not going to get too technical, and I'm going to whiz through these because I like to think I would make another video on the specific tools that I think you need. But hands down, the most important tools that I think you need to start a business are web design, graphic design, social media, video editing, sales, and communication. So let's start with web design. Every single business needs a home on the internet. Now, this could literally be like a one-pager. It doesn't have to be a highly complex website, depending on what your product or service is, but you need a home, a hub on the internet where it is you that is curating the message about your brand. And we'll get to social media after, but you need a hub on the internet, somewhere where you can capture leads and they can hopefully convert into sales. And when I was starting my business many, many years ago, I taught myself how to code. Probably didn't need to do that, but I had a lot of interest in kind of web design and all these kind of things. And I was a bit of a tech nerd, so I taught myself how to code. I actually ended up making my own website. I made my own software, which I eventually sold into the NHS and did business with them. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to teach yourself how to code. If you can teach yourselves the basics of web design, so there are so many tools now, so you can use WordPress and Elementor, which is a really quick and easy way to make websites, and you can get free templates online or templates, or you can buy templates for like $20 and you can have a hub on the internet set up really, really easily. If you are a business selling like digital products or even physical products, whatever it is, you can now go over to Shopify and you can have a website set up probably in a couple of hours. It is that easy. But yeah, if you are a entrepreneur or somebody looking to get into business, learning a little bit about web design is so, so important. And when you make a little bit of money and you want to outsource your kind of editing process, you will have a better idea of how to engage with a software developer because you have learned some of the basics yourself. The next thing is graphic design. Now, Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, they are your go-to softwares to use in this day and age. And I think when I started, I was very much kind of Photoshop and Illustrator. They are tools I think everybody should be able to use to some extent. However, they are not for everyone. They can be a little bit technical. They can take a bit of time to learn. So Canva is your friend. Canva is literally your ally these days. It is so quick. It is so intuitive. In fact, we use Canva in the business all the time because it kind of means we can do most things in-house without the need to get an external graphic designer. Graphic design is really important because me personally, I'm a very kind of visual learner. which means that I would rather see a picture or a concept design shown to me than read a block of text. And I think when you're trying to sell something, most people will be more receptive to something that kind of looks decent, very aesthetic, less text, and you can help them imagine what your product or service or software or whatever it is that you're designing is going to look like. So I think an element of graphic design is really important, even if you can put things together on Canva. Another really good tool is Figma. Figma is something that I've used in the past. It's not something that I still use now, but again, will take a little bit of time to learn how to wireframe on Figma. So overall for graphic design, if you can just learn how to make things look aesthetic and put your thoughts together in a kind of picture concept, Canva is an absolute must. Next thing is social media, and I'm going to put video editing together with social media. So social media is probably your most powerful tool, and as a founder, it is your responsibility to know the ins and outs of social media. If you do not know how to use social media in this day and age, your business, I don't want to say it's finished because anything can happen, but it is going to be incredibly hard for you to outcompete organizations that are active on social media. I saw a post the other day, Instagram has hit 3 billion active users. That is completely mental. The volume, the reach, the capabilities are just endless. So I think you have to know the best way to curate content and advertise your product, service, even your personal brand on social media. And a lot of that also comes with kind of learning how to video edit. So if you can put together basic content in maybe a software like CapCut, you don't have to use Premiere Pro or like DaVinci Resolve or whatever it is, or any of these other kind of complex video editing softwares. You can use something like CapCut where you can drag and drop a template into the time frame, replace the videos and images in that template, and you can get content out. If you have a basic understanding of social media and video editing, you are going to go far in your business. And I think with social media, you got to kind of be aware of like the paid and organic. If you're going for more like organic content, you're going for like that invoking emotions, that personal connection, that viral content. If you're going for paid social media marketing, you have like split second to capture somebody's attention. So you're going for like that instant hook. You want to be really, really targeted and you want to get the message across straight away. So it's really important to kind of know about the paid and organic. But I think overall, if you have a basic understanding of social media, video editing, you are going to go far. The last thing we're going to cover in this video is sales and communication. So I think learning how to sell is one of the biggest ROI skills you can learn in this day and age, even if you are not in business, because it's just about even selling yourself. Let's say you're applying for a job. We know how competitive the job market is right now. If you can learn how to sell yourself to your employer, it will feel like having a superpower. And I think my kind of top technique on sales and communication, and I learned this the hard way because it took me, so very open and honest on this channel, it took me over 12 months to secure my first ever NHS client when I was trying to sell into the NHS. And the reason it took me so long, firstly, I didn't know what I was doing. I was approaching the kind of sales in the completely wrong way. When I decided to switch my technique and be a lot more kind of emotive and evoke emotion in my sales pitch, we secured like 3 clients within a month. After 12 months of not getting anywhere to suddenly 3 clients in a month. And maybe a bit of that was just getting through the nose quickly. So going through many, many different kind of potential customers in a very long period. And we just got through everybody who was going to say no to us. Maybe there's an element of that. But what I also think is true is having that kind of emotion behind your sales pitch. So the product and service that we were providing was very kind of personable. And I was able to kind of tailor that emotion into the sales pitch. And that was like the hook and the way in, because they almost in a way related with me, related with the journey. And they absolutely then wanted to work with us because that's what separated us from all the other companies who we were competing with. And believe me, there are thousands. So if you can learn any of the above skills without kind of worrying too much about the business and the finance and the money and all that kind of stuff, because all of that will come. But if you can work on these skills like your web design, your graphic design, your social media, a little bit of video editing, learning how to sell, it will genuinely transform your business and it will transform you as a person and as a founder. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's probably going to form part of a longer series that's all about kind of business and entrepreneurship. So make sure you subscribe to watch the next video, which is probably going to be all about the best businesses or side hustles to build in 2026. I'll see you in the next one.